Most of the engine indications appear on the upper DU and the lower DU. The engine control and reverser lights are on the aft overhead panel. The total air temperature, N1 limit mode, and the selected temperature are at the top of the upper display. The N1 limit is normally calculated by the FMCs. On the ground, the OAT is entered in the FMC, and the FMC calculates the takeoff N1 limit. If a select or assumed temperature is entered in the FMC, a reduced takeoff N1 limit is calculated. In flight, the FMC uses the total air temperature to calculate N1 limits for these conditions: climb, reduced climb, cruise, go-around, and max continuous. If the FMC does not calculate the N1 limit, autothrottle limit is displayed. This means that a single degraded N1 thrust limit is being computed from the associated EEC. N1 RPM is displayed digitally to 0.1% in a display box. A pointer shows N1 RPM on a dial with 10% increment marks. The increment marks go from 0 to the red line, which is max operating N1 RPM limit. A momentary command sector arc around the outer perimeter of the N1 dial shows the difference between the thrust level commanded N1 and the actual N1. This arc display is dynamic and constantly changes to reflect the thrust lever selection versus the current N1 value. A green N1 reference bug on the outer perimeter of the N1 dial displays the computed FMC N1 limit or the manually set N1 reference. Two concentric knobs on the center forward instrument panel are labeled N1 set. They allow you to manually set an N1 reference or allow the reference bugs to be set by the FMC. The outer knob has selectable positions labeled 2, 1, Auto, and both. Auto is the normal position, which allows N1 limits to be set by the FMC. If FMC N1 limits are not available with auto selected, a series of dashes appears above the N1 digital display box. The both position allows setting both reference bugs with the inner knob. Positions 2 or 1 allow setting an individual engine reference bug with the inner knob. Manually set reference bug values are digitally displayed above the N1 digital display box. The N1 dial, pointer, and digital display turn red if the max operating N1 RPM is exceeded. The normal white color returns when the RPM is reduced below the limit. After engine shutdown, the red color returns to remind the crew and maintenance that an exceedance has occurred. When engine reverse thrust is selected, an amber reverse appears above the N1 digital display box. This indicates the reverser is deploying or stowing. Reverse displays in green when the reverser is deployed and blanks when the reverser is stowed. TAI, or thermal anti-ice, appears green above and to the left of the N1 digital display box when engine cowl anti-ice is on. TAI displays in amber if the cowl anti-ice valve is not in the position commanded by the cowl anti-ice switch. EGT is displayed in a digital box and by a pointer on the dial. During engine start, a temporary red mark displays the maximum start EGT limit until reaching 50% N2 RPM. The dial has a red mark at the maximum EGT limit. The amber portion of the dial indicates the maximum continuous EGT. The EGT display changes from white to amber if the maximum continuous EGT is exceeded for more than 5 minutes. The display changes to red if the start limit or maximum takeoff limit is exceeded. The display returns to white if the EGT is reduced below the limit. The display turns red again after engine shutdown as a reminder that a limit has been exceeded. You can call that the tattletale display. An amber engine fail alert appears on the EGT display if the N2 RPM falls below 50% with the start lever in idle. The engine fail alert remains until the N2 RPM increases above 50%, the start lever is moved to cutoff, or the engine fire switch is pulled. A digital fuel flow display for each engine shows below each N2 indicator. Secondary engine indications display on the lower display during any of these conditions. Power is initially applied to the system. When engine is selected on the multifunction display. When a secondary indication exceeds normal operating range. In flight, when an engine fails or the start lever is placed to cutoff. N2 RPM is displayed digitally in a display box and on a dial with a pointer. The reference mark at the upper end of the dial arc shows maximum N2 RPM. The indications are white unless the maximum limit is exceeded, causing them to turn red. Indications return white when RPM is reduced below maximum RPM. If an engine is shut down in flight, crossbleed appears in red magenta above the N2 digital display box when N2 RPM is too low for a windmill start. Fuel flow is displayed as a digital value in a display box on the lower display. A switch on the forward panel labeled Fuel Flow is spring-loaded to the rate position. The momentary used position displays the fuel used by each engine. This display appears for about 10 seconds after the used position is selected, then returns to fuel flow display. The fuel used value can be zeroed by placing the switch to the momentary reset position. The fuel is automatically reset when electrical power is removed from aircraft systems. Engine oil pressure is displayed digitally and on a vertical scale with a pointer. The vertical scale has an amber caution band below the normal operating range and a red reference mark at the bottom for minimum operating limit. The amber band is not displayed below 65% N2 RPM. Low oil pressure below the limit of approximately 13 psi causes the illumination of the amber low oil pressure annunciator on the upper display for that engine. The annunciator blinks for 10 seconds and then illuminates steadily. The blinking is inhibited for brief periods during takeoff or landing, and the annunciator remains illuminated steadily. Engine oil temperature is also displayed digitally and on a vertical scale with a pointer. The top of the scale has a red reference mark for the maximum operating temperature. Below this is an amber caution band. The normal operating range is white. The digital display color matches the color of the vertical scale and pointer. Engine oil quantity appears as a digital value inside a display box. A low oil quantity causes the display inside the box to change to reverse video, and the word low appears next to the box. Engine vibration level is also displayed digitally and on a vertical scale. The upper portion of the vertical scale has a reference mark. Vibration levels above this mark cause the digital display box to show in reverse video. If either the upper or lower display is unusable, the combined information from both displays may be shown on a single display in compact format. Now, let's answer those questions.